My latest find is this British Anzani Super Single. It's about 5 horsepower. I've had several of these in the past. They're not particularly rare, but a very interesting outboard nevertheless. Pretty old, as you can imagine. I particularly like the history regarding these. If you look up Anzani, probably better known as Eliseo Anzani, who set up a company in France and Britain to produce small engines, and his main interest was motorbikes, motor racing, motorcycle racing, I'll get it right. But anyway, he sold out after a while, and this sort of has links back to that. So this is typical Italian styling. This one's been got at. Someone's put a handle. Let's pan back a bit. This one's got a handle on. This is not original. Someone's put that on. It would have been cast alloy, aluminium, and considerably longer. And I have my doubts to that carburettor. I've had 3 or 4 of these, and I haven't had that carburettor. It's quite an unusual outboard. So it's about 5 horse. It's quite unusual in that it has a silencer. It doesn't put the exhaust underwater. There are a few outboards like that, that is true. It's also unusual, if I pan down and zoom in, that it has a 2-blade propeller. Zoom back a bit. There you go, up a bit. Come on down, that's better. But it's also unusual that it's water cooled, but it doesn't have an impeller, and it uses the propeller to pump the water through the engine. That's also quite unusual. I've seen sort of scoops where the pressure from the propeller is driven into a scoop, but this one is really unique. Let's get in a... And this is why I like Anzani. He was certainly a thinking outside the box type engineer. On the back of the propeller, and these blades are hollow, are 2 holes. See if I can zoom into that. 2 holes you can see there. And that's the low pressure side of the propeller. So water is sucked into there. This is a bit stiff, but anyway. It's sucked in there, comes up this pipe, goes to the top, goes over the head, cools it, comes back down this pipe, and ends up coming out the trailing edge of the skid, which makes a Venturi effect. So you've got suck in and suck out. So what could be more efficient than that? So anyway, that's a project maybe for the future. As I say, this is just how I got it, but it's all that sticking a bit. It does work, or should be in working order by the time I've replaced the pipe and found a plug cap. It was running a few years ago and the guy just stood it up, but as you can see the decals are gone. But a point I'd like to point out, and I'm always on about old engineering and doing comparisons to new. Look at the condition of this alloy casting. It's super, and you'll never find one of these with paint on it, and yet they're used in salt water. Yet today, with modern outboards, they use etching primers, special marine epoxy marine paints to protect them, and the slightest chip or scratch and you've got a chemical eruption underneath of white oxide from the alloy. Well, if they could do it then, why don't they, or can't they, do it now? I always find that quite amazing. It's not treated in any way at all. That is exactly how they leave the factory. I find that very interesting. Coming back to Anzani, he's probably best known for his W or fan engine, aero engine. He put that engine in Blério's plane. The first guy in, what was it, 1909 I think, flew the English Channel. But it was very nearly Anzani that got that title, because Anzani went to see Blériot at his hotel that morning, and he cancelled his attempt because he'd had an accident about a week before and damaged his leg. So Anzani said, well, you haven't paid me the £112 for this engine I built for you for your plane. I'll go instead. So this sort of put the pressure on Blériot, actually. And the rest, as they say, is history. While I was mentioning silencers for this, I picked up a big silencer here. A friend brought this in. Over here. Pan back. Back, not forward. A big old motorbike silencer. I said, keep your eyes open for an old silencer for me, as I want it for the engine I'm doing at the moment. Can't think of its name. Blow me down. But anyway, so as not to upset the neighbours too much, the volume of air going through that should be fine. Anyway, it's just a temporary thing. Rather than scare everyone in the neighbourhood. I'm on about the flat twin I'm currently doing up. As I say, this is for a future reference, because I'm looking for something to do. Joke, 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 joke. I believe on one of my videos I've done one of these up in pristine condition. But I've done so many now I can't remember which. Okay, a few snippets and bits and pieces left in the camera. The name I couldn't think of was Enfield, of course. How is it you can remember these things when you turn the camera off? I don't know. This shot probably shows the water flow better. I made an error saying that this was the trailing edge. It is, of course, the leading edge, and this is still the low pressure side of the propeller. So the water goes this way, back and out. Sorry for the confusion. This little motor and gearbox I put in a shop window display, sort of antometer type of thing, and works very well. Anyway, the guy said we no longer need the display. It's some time ago. So he brought it back. He says you might want some parts. Well, I thought, well, I'll take the motor out. And I looked at the date. And this has been running 4 years. For 4 years. Day and night, non-stop, 24/7. I'm amazed. How's that for food? This you might find interesting. It was a gift. It's a hydraulic pump. And there we have a 10-ton jack connected to a coupling, flexi hose. That's very handy. But it also came with this. Came this little jack. And this is 4.5 ton capacity. I'm not sure which one, whether to tighten it up or undo it. Let's have a look. That one. That way. 4.5 ton capacity. I think that's absolutely super. And it's 1 5/8 inches high. How handy is that? This is my petrol strimmer. It's a Lawn Flight model ST2050. It's 100 and no, it's not. It's 19.8 cc strimmer. Right, stay there. Just pan back. I bought this new 17 years ago, and it's done wonderful service. All I do is oil the shaft, I've changed the head and put an industrial head on, as I came across industrial rolls of cord. I think they're about 150 a drum. It was so cheap I changed the end to fit it. And it does all my work here, and I occasionally help out on a local churchyard. And so it really gets a pasting. So in about 17, at least 17, maybe 18 years, it's done great service. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I lost the cap for the fuel tank. Simple enough, you would think. To get another one, I wasn't so savvy on the internet then as I am now, and I haven't tried lately, I admit. But I couldn't get a cap, and I hunted everywhere. I looked for bottles and cans and anything that looked like that. It's a weirdo plastic thread, and it would be possible to machine one up on the lathe, but it's quite a setting up just for one cap. Anyway, there's a firm that, or site I found, they can find you any spare, absolutely guarantee it. And you just put in the details. So I put in the details of this, model number, serial number, and so forth, and said the age. And they come back within 3 or 4 days, yes, we can get you one. We've got one, we can get you one. And for that service we want 24 quid. £24 for a cap? I don't think so. That's ridiculous. So if anyone local has got one of these, they're scrapping, or know where there's a tank, let me have the cap if you're local, will you? What I've done over the last few years, as a temporary measure, and that's nearly, what, 5 years now, I got a piece of nylon and I machined a groove round it and put an O-ring round it, and that's a push fit. And I did that one afternoon, because the thing's normally like this, so you feel splashes about. I did that one afternoon as a temporary measure, and it's been like that for years now. But I would like a cap, if possible, because it's not 100% foolproof, and if I jog it, it will leak. Anyway, certainly can't complain of the service of this. This is not an expensive one. This is not really an industrial one. But by Jove, I couldn't ask any more of it. Today, while fishing in my favourite spot, I've employed some small sections of inner tube which I've screwed to the deck. They can be stood on and not tripped over, but it stops the butt end of the rods from rising if I get a decent fish. I was out here yesterday and it was only my quick reactions that stopped the rod from going overboard. I now fish with only 2 rods, but you can bet your bottom dollar the one that goes balmy is the one you haven't got in your hand.